This is Environmental Science 1, Chapter 4, Part 4 on kinds of ecosystems. In this portion of the video lecture, we will be discussing different types of marine ecosystems. The estuary is kind of the boundary between the lakes and the rivers and the streams and the ocean. Estuaries are areas where freshwater rivers will mix with salt water from the oceans. A lot of times estuaries are referred to as a nutrient trap because estuaries are another place of great biodiversity. Because of this nutrient trap, there are many different types of plants and animals that inhabit the areas around and in an estuary. Some plant and animal adaptations, whether the organism be plant or animal, they have to be able to tolerate variations in salinity. Because for example, in the spring, where we have things like increased rainfall and snowmelt, sometimes there can be an influx of fresh water into an estuary. And other times during the summer, when we don't have that extra fresh water coming in, those estuaries can be a little bit more saline. So animals and plants have to be able to tolerate kind of seasonal variations in the levels of salt that are in the water. Threats to estuaries. Many estuaries are sitting on major ports, so areas where boat traffic is coming in and out. Lots of pollution threats as well, not just from industry, but from human recreation as well. Agricultural runoff, those areas that are close to places that use herbicides or pesticides, that stuff will run into the lake and into the river and the stream and eventually on out into the estuary and the ocean. Sewage is another problem. Many third world countries that have their cities or towns near an estuary do not have industrialized plumbing, and so much of the human waste and the animal waste, of course, is dumped in a stream or a river, which gets flushed out, of course, from the estuary and then out to the ocean. Coral reefs are like the tropical rainforest of the ocean. Coral reefs are actually, corals are animals, even though what a coral reef looks like is kind of a sea of abandoned kind of fungus-looking objects and plants. But really, corals are animals, and they live in an association. It's kind of like a mega, super, ultra apartment building. And all of the little corals work together to get their food energy. So there's very diverse life that live in and around the coral reefs. Many specialists are found here. Just like in the tropical rainforest, those specialists will exploit one or two particular resources, and so the life in the coral reef becomes very dependent for those specialists. Crypsis is used in many animals that live around the coral reef. They will either be able to blend into the coral itself, or in some cases there is a little bit of mimicry as well, and certain plants or animals will have portions of their body or their structure that mimic coral reefs. Threats to coral reefs, oil spills. With the trafficking and transportation of petroleum products across the ocean, we can get some oil spills as damage, sewage again, as well as pesticide runoff. Many of the similar threats to any aquatic ecosystem. Coral reefs take a very, very long time to grow. The little coral animals, as they work in association, as they build their super, mega, ultra apartment complex for themselves, secrete limestone at a very, very slow rate. If coral reefs are damaged, they can take years to recover. A lot of pollution will cause what's called bleaching of coral reefs. And basically what these pollutants do is they remove and kill the coral out of the coral reefs. And these coral reefs become very kind of white and pale looking after the reef animals, the coral reef animals, die inside. If the coral reef can't get any of the photosynthesis action and can't get its food that way, it will not survive very long. So damage can take several years to recover. Out in the open ocean, most of the life is near the littoral or the shore zone or in the photic zone, but life does exist in the very deepest, darkest parts of the ocean. In shallow water, one of the animal adaptations for many fish, they have kind of a silvery colored body. That, believe it or not, acts like a camouflage. Although you would think having a silvery, shiny body would make you stick out like a sore thumb, in reality, the way that fish, or at least the way that we think fish view these, it would blend into the water in the background. And so it would kind of camouflage the fish from sticking out like a sore thumb. In very deep, deep water, in places of the profundal or the benthic zone, fish do live there. And some of the adaptations for very deep water fish, some of them have very large and glassy eyes, so they can capture what little light is down there and use it to their advantage. Some fish have very large jaws. Some fish in the deepest parts of the ocean have jaws that can open wider than the length of their body. When you live in the deep, dark water, you have to be able to eat anything that comes by. There's not a plentiful amount of biodiversity in the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean. So some fish have the adaptation of having these huge jaws to capture anything and everything possible. Other deep water fish have a mutualistic relationship with bacteria, and they have these biochemical lures that glow to attract prey in some cases, or some scientists also believe that they are used to attract mates as well. And so the bacteria that live in the little lure will glow, and the other fish or animals can see that and either think that it's a prey item or that it's another one of themselves, so they can have the mating process occurring. Threats to open ocean ecosystems, many of these similar threats to any aquatic ecosystem. Agricultural runoff is a problem. In oceans, it will cause what's called an algal bloom. So algae will reproduce and multiply at a crazy rate. Some algal blooms are even visible from the International Space Station up in space. So the runoff provides those extra nutrients like phosphorus and nitrogen and potassium that algae will use along with photosynthesis to grow. So if you're putting in through the agricultural runoff all of these extra nutrients, these algal blooms can cause a big problem because they cut off the photic zone because the algae sits on top of the water, and places underneath where the algal bloom is can't get sunlight. And if plants can't get sunlight, they die. And if plants die, then animals are soon to follow. Another threat to open ocean is overfishing. Some places, even though internationally it has been agreed upon that certain types of trawl nets are illegal to use because marine animals do end up getting caught. But however, out in the middle of the ocean, there are very few ocean police. They're called the International Seabed Authority. Generally, they're only called if something is a problem. So unfortunately, places can get by with using these illegal trawl nets because it's very difficult to catch them. Technically, polar biomes are considered marine because the base of the food chain for polar ecosystems are autotrophs that are called plankton. Plankton is microscopic in most cases, and little tiny krill will eat plankton, and lots of things will eat krill, and we can go on up the food chain in that matter. The Arctic portion of the polar biomes, this is going to be the north part, of course, of the oceans. The Arctic Ocean is rich in phytoplankton. Phytoplankton will photosynthesize. They have a very diverse fish population as well as whales, lots of polar bears, etc., and birds reside in the Arctic parts of the polar ecosystem. The Antarctic, this is the southern portion, also diverse in marine mammal populations. Many adaptations for cold weather are had by those animals that live in the Antarctic. For example, a lot of marine mammals have a layer of blubber or fat that helps protect their inside organs from getting too cold in the water. Also, birds that reside in the Antarctic for at least a portion of the year have very oily feathers, and again, that's another barrier so the water isn't getting into close contact with their skin. Threats to polar ecosystems in the marine variety oil exploration. When drilling for oil, a lot of those, if they are near the shoreline, that can be a problem. Increased tourism and human impact can also have and can also be a threat into polar ecosystems as well. This has been Environmental Science 1, Chapter 4, Part 4 on marine ecosystems.